B.
Back away from.
We slowly backed away from the snake.
Back down on.
Jack backed down when he saw how big the other guy was.
Back off.
She backed off in terror as she saw a mouse.
Back out of.
The alley is too narrow to turn around. You'll have to back out.
Back up.
Back up a little so that they can get by.
Back up.
I have evidence on video to back up my claim that Jane went to bed with a married man.
Badger into.
My daughter kept badgering me into buying her a Barbie doll.
Bail out.
The government refused to bail out the unprofitable state-run company.
Balance against.
We must balance the cost of driving a car against its benefits.
Balance out.
The good effects of the drug and its side effects balance each other out.
Balance with.
A woman often has to balance her home life with her career.
Balk at.
I balk at the idea of paying $1,000 for a mobile phone.
Ban from.
The school bans the students from gambling on campus.
Banish from.
Napoleon was banished from France to a tiny island off the northwest coast of Italy.
Bank on.
Don't bank on the weather being fine for our trip.
Bar from.
Athletes are barred from taking drugs.
Bargain with about. Bargain with over.
I spent half an hour bargaining about the price of the computer.
Bargain away.
She often bargains away for hours.
Bargain away.
He bargained away his jewel for a second-hand car.
Bargain for.
It took me quite a while to bargain for the antique.
Bargain on.
Don't bargain on her coming to our aid.
Barge into.
Sam barged into the dressing room.
Barter for.
The farmer bartered sweet potatoes for bread.
Base on.
The movie is based on a novel by Ernest Hemingway.
Bask in.
He was lying on the beach basking in the sunshine.
Beam at.
She beamed at each guest in her wedding ceremony.
Beam with.
She beamed with pleasure.
Bear down.
The president's strong will finally bore down all opposition.
Bear down on.
She looked Sam in the eye and bore down on him.
Bear out.
Research bears out the claim that smoking can cause lung cancer.
Beat down.
The sun beat down on the land.
Beat down.
$350 was the sale price for this coat, but I beat the salesperson down to $300.
Beat off.
I managed to beat off the dog and ran away.
Beat up.
Chris's boyfriend went crazy and beat her up.
Beaver away at.
He's been beavering away at his paper for hours.
Beckon to.
Cheryl beckoned to the waitress to bring her a menu.
Become of.
Whatever became of Jane's ring?
Beef up.
Security around the airports has been beefed up since the terrorist attacks.
Beg for.
I begged my teacher for forgiveness.
Beg for from.
That boy begged for money from the people at the subway station.
Beg off.
I was invited for a drink, but a headache made me beg off.
Begin with.
Wayne began his speech with a joke.
Beguile into.
He beguiled me into buying the shoddy watch.
Beguile out of.
The three women beguiled the old man out of his money.
Believe in.
Do you believe in God?
Belong to.
The book belongs to me.
Bend over.
I bent over to pick up the key.
Benefit from.
We will stand to benefit most from the fall in interest rates.
Bequeath to.
His father bequeathed a fortune to him.
Berate for.
He was berated for medical negligence.
Bereave of.
The accident bereaved him of his brother.
Beseech for.
He besought the judge for leniency.
Bestow on.
The president bestowed a medal on the firefighter.
Bet on.
I bet $1,000 on the white horse, but it came in last.
Beware of.
Beware of the dog.
Bicker about. Bicker over.
The two brothers kept bickering over who should wash the dishes.
Bid for.
James bid $150,000 for an antique chair.
Binge on.
When Jane feels depressed, she binges on biscuits.
Bite into.
That dog bit into the pizza.
Blackout.
Sharon blacked out while she was jogging.
Blackout.
The poster for the game tells where it will take place, but the date has been blacked out.
Blackmail into.
The gangsters blackmailed the business into paying hush money.
Blame for.
He blamed me for being late.
Blame on.
Don't blame your failure on other people.
Blanch at.
She blanched at the sight of blood.
Blast off.
The spaceship will blast off at 2 o'clock.
Blast off.
The bomb blasted the roof off.
Blaze down.
The searing sun blazed down on the tarred road.
Blaze with.
The Christmas tree is blazing with lights.
Bleed from.
She was bleeding from a cut on her leg.
Blend in with.
The color of your skirt blended in with your blouse.
Blend into.
The tower seems to blend into the scenery.
Blend with.
Oil does not blend with water.
Blend with.
Blend the flour with the eggs.
Blind oneself to.
You cannot blind yourself to reality.
Blink at.
He didn't blink at the idea of taking a shower in severe winter.
Block out.
Dark clouds blocked out the moon.
Block up.
Something must be blocking up the pipe.
Blossom into.
She is suddenly blossoming into a very charming woman.
Blot out.
Clouds blotted out the sun.
Blow out.
The tire blew out as I was driving home.
Blow out.
Before you leave, make sure you blow the candle out.
Blow over.
There was a typhoon this morning, but it has blown over.
Blow up.
A chemical factory blew up in central Taiwan.
Blow up.
The workers blew up the bridge.
Bluff into.
He bluffed his enemy into submission.
Blurt out.
Jack blurted out the news.
Blush at.
Sam blushed at his stupidity.
Blush with.
Sonia blushed with shame when she was caught stealing.
Boast about. Boast of.
She is always boasting about how beautiful her daughter is.
Bog down.
The car got bogged down and couldn't move.
Boil down to.
It all boils down to how much money you can pay for the computer.
Bomb out.
The station was completely bombed out.
Bombard with.
The president was continually bombarded with questions in the press conference.
Bone up on.
I should bone up on my grammar before the test.
Boot out of.
He was booted out of the company for embezzling a large sum of money.
Border on.
The theme park borders on a river.
Borrow from.
I borrowed some money from my brother.
Boss about. Boss around.
The new director is always bossing his workers around.
Botch up.
He botched up his test again.
Bother about.
Don't bother about me.
Bother with. Bother about.
Don't bother me with your problems.
Bottle up.
Sam is bottling up his homemade grape wine.
Bottom out.
Oil prices have bottomed out.
Bounce back.
The ball bounced back.
Bounce off.
The ball hit the wall and bounced off it.
Bow out of.
Mr. Church bowed out of the presidential race.
Bow to.
Congress may bow to public pressure and cut their own salaries.
Brace oneself for.
The islanders were told to brace themselves for a super typhoon.
Brag about.
He is always bragging about his one-night stands with women.
Brave it out.
We will face up to reality and brave it out.
Break away from.
The robber broke away from the policemen.
Break down.
A car broke down in the middle of the intersection and caused a traffic jam.
Break down into.
Food is broken down into useful substances in the stomach.
Break even.
If you make an investment in the stock market, you are lucky when you break even.
Break in.
A burglar broke in through that window and stole all the money.
Break in on.
The honk broke in on my dreams.
Break off.
The peace talks broke off without any agreement being reached.
Break off.
Taiwan has broken off diplomatic relations with South Korea.
Break out.
Last night, a fire broke out on the top floor of the hotel.
Break out of.
3 convicts broke out of prison this morning.
Break through.
Scientists have broken through in their attempt to find the makeup of genes.
Break through.
It's difficult to break through cultural differences and meet people in a new country.
Break up.
The Beatles broke up in 1970. After the breakup, all the Beatles performed as soloists or led their own groups.
Break up.
Some conglomerates are being broken up to become more flexible and competitive.
Bribe into.
Businessmen sometimes have to bribe officials into approving their business ventures.
Brief about. Brief on.
He briefed us on the rescue operation.
Brim with.
Her eyes brimmed with tears.
Bring about.
Computers have brought about many changes in the workforce.
Bring around.
We managed to bring Tim around with ice water.
Bring around to.
Ginny tried to bring the conversation around to the subject of abortion.
Bring back.
With the murder rate rising, many countries have voted to bring back the death penalty.
Bring down.
News of my brother's illness brought the whole family down.
Bring down.
The government is taking action to bring inflation down.
Bring forward.
We have to bring the examination forward to Monday because the new year comes earlier than usual.
Bring home to.
Can you bring it home to your son that if he messes around next term, he will flunk out of college?
Bring in.
Mr. Church was brought in to coordinate the rescue operation.
Bring in.
Her new album has brought in at least $2 million.
Bring off.
She'll get a promotion if she brings off the deal.
Bring on.
Her illness was brought on by drinking too much.
Bring out.
Ford is bringing out a new model for young people.
Bring through.
Jane was very ill and her doctor tried to bring her through but to no avail.
Bring to.
Ice water brought Chris to.
Bring under.
The gorillas were quickly brought under.
Bring up.
Jane brought up her 2 children by herself.
Bring up.
I will bring up this issue for discussion at the next meeting.
Bristle at.
He bristled at her hubris.
Bristle with.
He bristled with rage.
Brood about, brood on, brood over.
Don't just sit there brooding on your failure.
Browse through.
I was browsing through the catalog and I found this CD.
Brush aside, brush away.
He simply brushed aside his wife's objections to his plan for an investment in the stock market.
Brush off.
Joe calmly brushed off our questions about his health.
Brush up.
I have to brush up my English before I go to America.
Bubble over.
The tea kettle is bubbling over.
Buckle down to.
Now let's buckle down to the new project.
Buckle under to.
At last he buckled under to his boss's order.
Buckle up.
Buckle up your belt before you hit the road.
Budget for.
Jill budgeted for buying a new house.
Budget for.
The government has budgeted $1 billion for defense spending.
Build on.
Diplomatic relations are often built on mutual interests.
Build up.
The clouds are building up.
Build up.
You can build up your strength by jogging.
Bulge with.
His pocket bulged with stones.
Bulk out.
Lily bulked out her book with lots of illustrations.
Bully into.
That rough guy often bullies schoolboys into stealing money.
Bump into.
The two buses bumped into each other.
Burn down.
The warehouse was burned down and only ashes were left.
Burn off.
I will go for a swim to burn off a few calories.
Burn out.
Tina was completely burned out after the climb to the top of the hill.
Burn up.
The way she treats the child really burns me up.
Burst in on.
Chris burst in on the meeting with the news that a plane was hijacked.
Burst into.
No one knows who burst into the office.
Burst out.
They all suddenly burst out laughing.
Bury oneself in.
Sam buried himself in studies.
Busy oneself with.
He busied himself with grading his students' term papers.
Butter up to.
Jane is buttering up to the new director to gain a promotion.
Button up.
It is quite cold. You had better button your coat up.
Buy back.
He wanted to buy his villa back.
Buy off.
Some civil servants are easy to buy off.
Buy out.
Mr. Hall has bought out all his partners.
Buy up.
Afraid of running short, Tim bought up as much milk as he could.